What's up, cute teenagers, and welcome back to Cute Life Hacks. So here's the long-awaited video on BT21 DIYs for all of you ARMYs out there. You guys love Chimmy and Cooky, so I decided to make them first. And of course, Koya is my spirit animal, so he has to be in here as well. Just let me know below which characters you want to see me make next. There's still Tata, Van, Mung, RJ, and Shuki left. If you're new here, then a huge welcome, and don't forget to subscribe to Cute Life Hacks and Macaroon for the cutest DIYs on YouTube. And now, without further ado, let's get started with our Chimmy and Cooky phone case. For this, I'm going to be using paper clay from banggood.com, and I've linked it down below. This clay is super fluffy and incredibly good value for the huge amount that you get. The only drawback is that it dries slightly quicker than other brands, so you have to work quickly and remember to cover any exposed clay with wet wipes. First of all, I'm going to use some acrylic paint to make the color a brighter yellow. Break off a small piece and form it into a ball. Then flatten it slightly using the palm of your hand. Press this into an oval shape and use a toothpick to create 2 indentations exactly down the middle. Chimmy's head is slightly longer on one side and flatter on the other, so use your fingers to gently sculpt out the shape. I found it was useful to press the base against the table like this to create the flatter side. Place it on your phone case and check that the size looks okay. Then use some water to smooth everything down. The clay is just sticky enough so it doesn't move around, but you can also easily remove it at this point. Next, take some brown paper clay. I mentioned in this video that it's very difficult to create dark colors by mixing paint into white clay. This is why it's always a good idea to keep some dark clay around. And even so, I still had to use a lot of black paint to get the correct shade for Chimmy's ears. Take a bit of clay and divide it into half so you get 2 equally sized pieces. Then form each one into a teardrop shape and attach it onto the head. When your fingertips are wet, the dark color might rub off easily, so you have to be very careful not to stain any of the yellow clay. Now take a tiny piece of white clay and flatten it into an oval shape. Then carefully stick this onto the face. Once the head is done, leave everything to dry for a bit before moving on to the next part. I'm going to be using black acrylic paint for the details. As usual, I'm using a toothpick instead of a paintbrush since we need extremely thin lines. You can even try a needle or a pin. Then fill in some pink paint for the tongue and you're done. Now let's move on to Cooky. This time I'm using pink and white paper clay, which I've linked below, but this also works if you only have white. Simply use acrylic paint to make a rosy pink color. As always, it's a good idea to wear rubber gloves to prevent the paint from getting on your skin. Just like before, create a ball and flatten it slightly using your palm. Cooky's head is slightly teardrop shaped, so press the top part inwards using your fingers. Then use water to smooth everything out. Now make an ear shape and cut off one end using scissors. This gives you a flat edge that's much easier to attach to the head. For the second ear, you want to make it slightly thinner and slightly longer. Then carefully bend the tip over to create Cooky's trademark look. Once folded over, the width and depth should match up with the other ear. Cut off the base with scissors and attach this again using water. I recommend going over all the gaps with a toothpick to make sure everything is smoothly joined. Now take a tiny piece of white clay, flatten it out and cut off one end using scissors. Then attach this onto Cooky's left ear using water. If you see any bits of dust or dirt, then you can remove these using a damp cotton bud. And lastly, I'm adding facial features using black acrylic paint. Once your pieces are dry, you can move them around the phone case to find the best arrangement. Please remember that not all types of glue stick well to phone cases. It often depends on whether the surface is made from plastic or silicone. So whichever glue you decide to use, be sure to test it out after it's dry to make sure everything is really firmly attached. And of course, you don't actually have to attach these to a phone case at all. You can easily turn them into charms, necklace pendants, or magnets instead. And now our Chimmy and Cooky phone case is done. I think this looks so adorable, though it's a novelty phone case, so you have to be careful not to damage it inside your bag. And now it's time to make a Koya plushie. To make this, you'll need a blue fluffy sock. Grab a big handful of stuffing and push it into the toe of the sock. Then push it around to create a slightly oval shape like this, and then trim off the ends. Now take some thread and sew a running stitch all around the opening. Pull this tight and make sure all the extra bits of fabric are pushed into the center. Then sew another circle around the edge and crisscross the stitches until you get the feeling that everything is firmly closed. Hide your thread by exiting somewhere else on the plush and then cutting it close to the surface so it disappears into the stuffing. Take the remaining sock and draw 2 circles. I used part of the heel as a guide, so this gives you a good idea of roughly how big the circle should be. Then cut out both pieces. Once again, sew a running stitch all around the edge and place some stuffing in the center and carefully pull the opening closed. I'm always amazed at how much stuffing can fit into this step, so be sure to use a bit more than you think you might need. Once everything is closed, crisscross stitches across the opening to seal the fabric shut. Now find a good position for Koya's ear and attach it by alternating stitches on both sides. By the way, if you want to see all these stitches in detail, then please watch my sewing techniques video here. I actually thought about ways to make the ears detachable, but that ended up being a bit too complicated, so I decided to leave it out. Once you're done, take some white fabric and cut out 2 small circles. Trim one side slightly so they have a straight edge and then sew them into place. Alternatively, you can also use white fabric paint or glue on some felt fabric pieces. The same applies for Koya's nose. If you have purple fabric, then simply cut out an oval and then sew or glue that into place. However, I wanted to make the nose a bit more three-dimensional, so I'm going to be using needle felt. Roll up a piece of felting wool and poke it until it forms an egg shape. Keep going until it's nice and firm, which might take up to 20 minutes. Now I'm going to attach it using the same ladder stitch that we used on the ears. I'm working in a circle, alternating one stitch on the nose and one stitch on the head. To make the eyes and mouth, I'm simply cutting out the shapes using black felt fabric and then sticking them on using glue. And now our Koya sock plushie is done. I really hope you enjoyed this video and be sure to share it with all other members of the ARMY as well. Please remember to follow me on Instagram under my username Macaroon. I've just posted a video of this DIY and you can comment under that saying which other BT21 character you want to see next. This is Joanna, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!